Hello everyone, how are we all doing? My name is Travon from freestudiotime.com, and today I'm going to be showing you the simple trick to get professional sounding vocals. So let's get straight into it. So when I think about professional sounding vocals, I think about bright, shiny vocals that aren't overpowered by the instrumental track. I'm thinking of really clear vocals where you can hear every single word that the person is saying. I'm thinking of no muddy frequencies. It sounds like the vocals are right there and present in the mix. Let me play you an example of what I'm talking about.
Grew up in the city, was surrounded by some bad things. I don't wanna say that I was one and never had things. But now I live in existential crisis, having bad dreams. Now I'm giving shawty black jeans, I'm a black jean. Losing baby, I don't know what that means. I just wanna know I'm supposed to escape from these bad dreams. How I'm supposed to escape from these bad dreams, yeah. How I'm supposed to escape from these bad dreams. Vision outside, those.
So what I heard from that was a lot of clarity, a lot of sharpness. It actually sounds like my vocals are sitting inside the instrumental instead of on top, which is one of the key components to making a song actually sound professional. Now there's one simple trick to getting your vocals to really shine out and getting them to sound crisp, and that is a few different things. One, your compression, and two, saturation or your exciter. Number one, I say compression because with the way compression works on your vocals, it's going to be dramatically altering what the audience perceives your voice to sound like from a song. The reason I say the method of compression you use when mixing your song is so important is because depending on how you use your compressor, it can dramatically alter how your voice sounds like. And if you don't really understand how to use the compressor that you have, or you're just not doing enough or the correct method for compressing your specific vocals, it just won't sound as good and it won't sound like a professional sounding mix. The thing about professional audio engineers, they have different types of compression methods for different types of sounds. For instance, I use 3 different types of compression methods for my songs. First method I use is just the basic compressor method, which everyone learns first. Involves just using one compressor to take care of the dynamics of your vocals. I say using basic compression can be really nice for vocals that were recorded in a professional studio setting, but I find more times than not basic compression is not the best method to use for vocals that were recorded at a home studio without any sound treatment. The second method I use is called dual compression, which is actually what I used on this song. This is my favorite method of compressing vocals. It involves using 2 compressors, as the name suggests. First compressor is normally a really aggressive, snappy, really fast compressor that only works on attacking and compressing down the peaks of your audio signal. The second compressor is normally a more balanced, slower type compressor, really just focuses on balancing out the overall dynamics of your audio signal. The reason I like using this method is because it takes a lot of strain off the processing power with one compressor. And normally, as far as vocal compression overall, just like the quality of my compression, this normally gives me a greater quality sound. It sounds like my vocals are a bit more balanced compared to just using one. I find this method to sound really good for rap or hip hop vocals. Third compression method I like to use a lot as well is parallel compression. Parallel compression involves using 2 compression signals, a dry and a wet signal. You're going to blend those 2 compression signals together to create a bolder, thicker sounding vocal. As far as the way you compress with parallel compression is very similar to like how we do with dual compression, except we're going to be placing these 2 compressors on 2 totally separate signals. One audio signal of your voice or whatever you just recorded will be heavily compressed. The other duplicate of your audio signal, or the dry component to this mixture, will just be lightly compressed. Nothing too crazy. We really don't want to focus on compressing this part too much. It's really just meant to complement the wet compressed signal, and once you blend those both together, it creates a fuller, more darker bodied sounding vocal. I find this method of compressing vocals to sound excellent on almost any type of melodic sounding song, as long as it's not like hip hop. But normally if it's like some type of melodic sounding song where you have to hold out melodies for a little bit longer and there may be a little bit of vibrato, I find parallel compression works best with this because it's actually filling up your headphones and it just creates a really pleasurable experience. As far as using parallel compression on rap vocals, I don't really know if I would do that in too many situations, just because when a person listens to like a rap or like a hip-hop song that's a lot more fast-paced, they're not really looking for bolder sounding vocals. They kind of just, if they're not really looking for bolder sounding vocals, if anything, people want a little bit more distortion than playing around with compression. I'm actually going to show you what this vocal sounds like. So in this song, I actually use 3 different types of compressors. I use the dual compression, which you can actually see over here on my vocal bus. The second thing I did was throw a multi-band compressor on the master track. The reason why doing this is so important is because this compressor will literally glue the instrument and the vocals closer together, making them sound more as one instead of 2 separate entities, which is just like how I mentioned earlier, the key to getting that professional sounding mix. So what I'm actually going to do for you is turn both the multi-band compressor off, and I'm going to turn the compressors off on my vocal bus, and I'm going to let you hear how it sounds, and then I'm going to turn them back on just so you have an idea of what we're doing here.
Losing, baby, I don't know what that means. I just want to know I'm supposed to escape from these bad dreams. I'm supposed to escape from these bad dreams, yeah. I'm supposed to escape from these bad dreams. Reason outside, those feelings like cottage and draw me.
So my vocals actually just got so quiet from turning my compressors off. I had to go back and turn the instrumental down just so you could hear what I was actually saying. Let me show you how everything sounds with a compressor now.
Existential crisis, having bad dreams. Now I'm giving shawty black jeans, I'm a black jean. Losing, baby, I don't know what that means. I just want to know I'm supposed to escape from these bad dreams.
Now the second thing I was talking about earlier to get professional sounding vocals is using a saturator or an exciter, whatever you want to call it. Now what this does is adds a layer of harmonic distortion to your voice, which is very, very, very important. Now what this does is adds a layer of harmonic distortion to your voice. But in this case, this type of distortion means very good. Now what this is doing is allowing your vocals to sound a lot more crisp, present, and in your face without using a good saturation method. Now I'm gonna be totally honest, I think majority, if not all, of professional engineers, now I'm not even joking, I'm pretty sure that using a saturator or exciter is like one of the most crucial parts of getting a professional sounding vocal, because it's like impossible to get your vocals to sound present without using that or without going crazy on the EQ. But once you start tweaking too much around with the EQ, your frequency balance starts to get out of control. That's why it's really nice to use an exciter. Then on top of that, using an exciter is also really good for when you're in your car and you want to listen to your song at a low volume, but it doesn't sound like your song is powerful enough. Once you add this harmonic distortion to your song and you play your mix in the car, it will still sound like it's in your face, just like how it does when you listen to your favorite artist on the radio or on Spotify. Now for this specific song, I use multiple exciters. Now the thing about adding an exciter or saturator to your mixes is that if you overdo it, it will definitely make things sound a bit more tinny, and tinny is definitely bad. You definitely want to avoid that. So when using an exciter, listen for what you're actually doing and try to like just look at the numbers, make sure you're not going over anything too crazy. This is my first exciter right here. I use about 4 exciters on this song, but basically 2 exciters. Over here I have my exciter from iZotope and Neutron. What this exciter does is allows me to add harmonic distortion to different frequency ranges in my vocal spectrum. So as you can see right here in this little box, I have 4 different types of distortion. I have retro, tape, warm, and tube. I can actually blend between all these different types of distortions to get the mix that I can actually blend between these different types of distortions to get the I can actually blend through these different types of distortions over here in order to get the sound that I want out of this exciter. Over here you can see from my low end, I used a bit more tube, but not all the way 100% tube, and I did a similar method to the tape for my high end. Now as you can see over here for my high mids, I added a bit more tube, but not 100% tube. That's why it's kind of in the middle right here. And for my high end, I have a bit more tape, but again, not 100% tape. It's kind of like a mixture of all of these. As you can see over here, this is after I do all of my compression and my EQ. And the reason why I like to do this is because When you add a little bit of saturation before you compress vocals, it kind of helps balance the actual tonality of your song, and then coming after with another exciter or saturator after compression kind of stamps that tonality and allows you to bring your vocals out a little bit more in your face, and sounds really good in most scenarios. Still listen and figure out what you need to get. Now, another thing that I did was, after throwing that exciter on there, I threw on a nice Soundgoodizer. A lot of people hate Soundgoodizer, but the thing about using this is it blends a mixture of a limiter, compressor, and an exciter. Now, in some situations, Soundgoodizer just sounds really good depending on the type of song you're working on, but the reason why this VST gets a lot of hate inside of FL Studio is because this is the only thing we have to adjust. We only have A, B, C, D, and this knob right here, and a lot of people really do not like that. But in some situations, this is kind of all you need. What really matters is how the song sounds, and it's very easy for people to get too caught up in the technicality of this whole entire thing. Even though this is a very technical process, sometimes you have to think, with things like this, if it works for so many other people, who are you to judge and criticize it for? Now, I can't even lie, as far as like the detailed controls on like the specific parts of the Soundgoodizer, it is very limited on here, and in some scenarios when you want to get that problem taken care of, you may not be able to. But that's why, if you can't achieve that sound, go ahead and use Maximus and use the Soundgoodizer preset, because Soundgoodizer is built off of Maximus. Now, when you go into Maximus, they have all these different types of presets inside of Soundgoodizer, A, B, C, and D, and you can actually have more detailed control and figure out what sound that you actually need from that Soundgoodizer if you're not getting it from this. But in this specific scenario, it sounded good just using this. And then if you notice on my master track, I threw another exciter on here. I like to do this just to make sure I'm getting a brighter sounding mix. But not only that, I added another Soundgoodizer to the master track. I'm going to turn off all the exciters I have on this track off, and then I'm going to turn them back on, and then you're going to see how powerful using an exciter in your mixes actually are, especially when it comes to getting professional sounding vocals.
Grew up in the city, was surrounded by some bad things. I don't wanna say that I was one and never had things. But now I live in existential crisis, having bad dreams. Now I'm giving shawty black jeans, I'm a black jean. Losing baby, I don't know what that means. I just wanna know I'm supposed to.
Now let's turn these exciters back on.
Grew up in the city, was surrounded by some bad things. I don't wanna say that I was one and never had things. But now I live in existential crisis, having bad dreams. Now I'm giving shawty black jeans, I'm a black jean. Losing baby, I don't know what that means. I just wanna know I'm supposed to escape from these bad dreams. How I'm supposed to escape from these bad dreams, yeah. How I'm supposed to escape from these bad dreams. Vision outside, those feelings I caught it. Shit draw me retarded, best trust on bet. And now I get money, these niggas act funny.
But alright everyone, that is the key to getting professional sounding vocals. Now, if you're a beginner wondering how to mix your vocals with stock plugins inside FL Studio, make sure you hit the link in my description so I can give you a detailed step-by-step guide on how to do just that. I'm gonna go over every single little thing with you, and I can guarantee it'll 5 times the speed in which you progress. But alright everyone, I hope you got a lot of value out of this video. If you did, make sure you hit like and subscribe. I'll catch you all in the next one.